Hello. You know, when I think back to when I was little, and that was a long time ago, folks, I remember my early influences, and I remember how my parents used to read me. My mom, especially, and my Aunt Kathy. They used to read me superhero comics. We'd sit on the couch in the living room, and they would read me early DC comics, or DC comics featuring Superman and Superboy and the Legion of Superheroes, and I remember specifically the Superboy stories that had the Superboy robots. Superboy had all these robots, and they were so realistic that you couldn't tell it wasn't Superboy. You know, I mean, they confused everybody, even his friends and everybody. Superboy robots. So how did Superboy get so much done? You know, fighting crime all over the world and saving us from menaces from outer space and everything. Well, he had Superboy robots. If he wasn't available, he sent the robots to do the job. This is long before Iron Man came up with the same idea, but these were Iron Mans. You know, they were robots, and they look like robots, and Iron Man kind of looks like a robot, but Superboy looked like a real human being, even though he had powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men or mortal boys. But I remember those stories and how cool they were. And it made me want. I was so that not only that, but I was born in 1956, so the George Reeves Superman television show was still on the air when I was born. Of course, George Reeves passed away like it was 58 or something, but the reruns were still on for quite a while. And I was watching those as a little kid, and I was spellbound, absolutely spellbound. I believed a man could fly, and Superman was just the greatest hero. He was just the greatest. So, I mean, I actually, I was very young, very naive, and very, Superman was so cool, and I just thought there has to be someone out there. Someone who could save us all, in times of trouble. And you could get into religion and say, well, Jesus, and that's true. But this is a naive kid thinking and watching superheroes on television. And I believed that there was a Superman. No matter what happened, if somebody broke into your house, Superman was there. There were no criminals who could escape Superman, and he was indestructible. And so I believed that, and I was so naive. And I was before I could even read. Like I said, my parents were reading me the comics, and before I could even read, I was looking at these colorful colored pages, these panel by panel graphic literature comics of superheroes, and enjoying those. And when I didn't go to kindergarten, I went straight to the first grade, so I skipped that first grade. When I first started to read, right away I started reading comic books. And then, the stories, I could read the stories myself. Nobody had to sit beside me and share the comic with me. And so I started buying comics, and they were 10 cents each. And especially once I started getting an allowance, like I got a $1 allowance, my very first allowance. Wow, I got $1. I could go to the store and I could get 10 comics. And so those were great days and exciting days. So, and then I started to read, and I started reading comics for myself, and I became even more fascinated. Eventually, I branched out and discovered Marvel Comics, and especially Spider-Man. Spider-Man originally. Also Iron Man, the Fantastic Four. Started getting into that. And, you know, the world was just great. But I will say that when I was in the first grade, the very first grade, I was so naive that when the teacher asked the class to name the planets, and you know, different kids, Pluto, Mars, Jupiter, and I raised my hand and I said Krypton. And I really thought Krypton was a planet. I thought it was real. I sort of thought Superman was real. I used to look up in the sky and say, where is this guy? I see him on television all the time. I was one naive kid. Well, I had faith. I had faith that there were heroes out there that would come to the rescue. And, well, it's up to you to decide if there actually are these heroes in the world. Of course there are. Of course there's heroes in the world. Maybe they don't wear capes and spandex, but they're out there in our armed forces, in daily life. Firemen, policemen, lots of heroes out there. People of strong character, people who believe in right and wrong, and people who do the right thing, and people who help each other. There are heroes, folks, in the world. So anyway, I had this fascination with comics. It made me feel good. It made me feel strong. I was a scrawny little guy, man. I was a little puny pipsqueak in those days. I never did get really tall. I'm 5'6", but I'm much wider than I was in those days. So you know, it kind of gives me a certain kind of strength, a certain kind of you ate too much strength. In my own dreams, I was a hero. I could fly. I could fight crime. I could do all this stuff in my dreams. The reality might have been different, but I never really stopped believing, especially when I was asleep. If you can believe that when you're awake, then you got something going for you. You have a certain strength. A strength, I don't know if I want to call it a strength of character, because I don't want to say that, you know, my character is all that great. As a lot of people have extraordinary character, and I wouldn't want to compare myself to them. I will say that I never stopped believing in the goodness of people. I never stopped believing that anything was impossible, beyond your reach. I believe that if you're firm enough, strong enough in your faith, and you work hard enough, you can accomplish anything. Whether you came from another planet or not. You too can be a superhero. I'm probably not, but maybe you are, and I respect that. We do our best to influence other people. We do our best to do the right things all the time. We do our best to be good and moral and decent people. There's a strength of character, You may not be as mighty as Superman, but you might still be able to save the day from time to time. You might be able to win the day if you're strong enough in your convictions, if you believe in what's right, and if you walk a steady path, and you recognize right and wrong, and when you see wrong, you do something about it, and when you see right, you stand there in awe and appreciation, and you you want to share that appreciation with others. This is the way it should be. This is the way it should be. People should treat each other well. The world would be a better place. If there weren't wars, if there weren't disagreements, if people wouldn't scream at each other and yell and just do the right things. And when you see something wrong, you reach out and you do what you can to correct that. However you may interpret those words. There's a million ways to interpret those. I'm just saying, when push comes to shove and you find yourself in a situation where you have to react, you see someone being mistreated, treated poorly, or someone being hurt, someone being attacked for no reason. If you stand there and do nothing, you're not a hero. If you use your wisdom and step in at the right time and say the right words, you might be able to calm things down, soothe over a situation, smooth things over, and prevent, keep people from hating each other. There's too much hate in the world, people. A lot of what I'm saying here is very abstract. Well, I'm out for a walk. It's been a long day, and I had a good day. And I may not nail any hard facts here. I may speak in generalities, but I think you kind of get where I'm coming from. We draw inspiration from superheroes that we read in the comics or that we saw on the screen. We draw this inspiration. That there is truth, justice, and the American way. Don't forget that. Don't leave that out of the equation, folks. Too many people leave that out. But believe in good. Believe in the goodness. There is goodness in the world. Have a good heart, and you can spread that goodness and spread whatever's inside of you amongst your fellow human beings. Don't spread hate, division. I was talking with someone about politics and stuff. I really don't want to talk about politics. I was talking about the music that I used to play when I had my garage band 30 years ago. I might put some of that on this channel sometimes. If I was to talk about politics, a lot of times entertainers will go on stage and they talk about politics. Blah, 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 politics, politics, politics. And they draw a hard line one way or another, and but the audience is there to be entertained. They're there to hear music. I know Mick Jagger criticized Bruce Springsteen recently for being political in his concerts, and he said, people don't want to hear that. They come to be entertained. And was it him or was it someone else? But someone said just recently, so true. Politics divide us. Music unites us. Music brings us together. I would say art and creativity. For instance, comics and things. Believing in heroes that can right all wrongs, and it's not that complicated. Everything doesn't have to go through some governmental means to be resolved. Right is obviously right, and wrong is obviously wrong. Even that sounds political, and people are going to be split. If they hear that, they're going to go, oh, well, right is right. If it's your right, but if it's my right, blah, 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 blah. No. There are certain things that are just right, and there are certain things that are just wrong. And these are obvious truths. And, okay, I'll end it right there. Folks, come together, man. Don't argue and be at odds with each other and hate each other. There's too much hate in the world. Oh my gosh, it's terrible. And but there's a lot of good in the world. There's a lot of good people in the world. And you know, we can all come together and make for a better world, make a better world. If we try. It just takes enough of us to try. And a lot of us are trying, so believe it or not, it's not hopeless. There's always a chance. As long as there's faith. As long as there's faith, there's hope. And as long as there's hope, there's a chance for a better world. Folks, have a nice evening and have a nice week. And I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.